So it's that time of the week again, some more Fallout mods weekly, or specifically Fallout 4 mods weekly. Obviously this iteration is going to be a day earlier than any of the other iterations, which I typically post on Sunday just because I felt like posting it today instead of tomorrow. Either way, this is a series where I show you guys what are in my eyes some of the best releases for Fallout 4 modding in the past 7 days. This week is having a lot of high quality mods coming together, definitely something that you're probably going to want to download whether you're a PC user or an Xbox One user, and a lot of just cool things that I think you'll use throughout your playthroughs for weeks to come, not just something to check out for a couple hours. Starting things off, we have the MTS-255 RS. I can't say those words, or this video will get suppressed by YouTube. What this is going to be is a new piece of equipment in Fallout 4. It's actually a pretty simple one. Compared to some other mods out there, this one definitely is quite simple in the customization aspects. There's not nearly as many options, but the ones that are available are probably the ones you'd want. Things like barrel lengths, different receivers doing different amounts of damage, and of course being locked behind perk walls and different component requirements. And although simple, it actually is pretty cool. I quite enjoyed my time using this, except for one gaping issue I guess it has. No matter which sites you are using, for whatever reason, unless it was a glitch with my game, you zoom way in when using this. I'm not using some aftermarket mod. This is isolated to this mod. When you see me zoom in or aim down sights, I really aim down sights, and it's a little bit frustrating, especially with something that is meant to be used in a shorter range. I guess that's specific to the sawed-off version or the short barrel one because it actually does fire shells exclusively. So although being labeled as a shoddy, it actually isn't going to be one so much in the traditional sense, more something that you'd probably use in hunting or something like that. Either way, it's fun to use. It definitely has a pretty unique vibe going on with it. I think that integrated suppressor barrel actually is really cool looking and definitely makes it stand out as something looking almost as a mix of traditional and a little bit futuristic. Building off that, we do have the LC1 laser carbine. This is going to be another new piece of equipment in Fallout 4. Right off the bat, this mod author put a lot of work into the lore and backstory behind this, and I do want to take a moment to appreciate that. I'm not going to explain all of it or really any of it because I think it would just drag this portion out, but if you are interested in that, it is on the Nexus page, and I definitely would give it a read before downloading this mod if that kind of thing strikes your fancy. But even if it doesn't, it still is a high quality piece of equipment that is quite a bit of fun to use in Fallout 4. It's another one that's quite simple. The mod author mentions that it's largely meant to be an alternative to some of the more traditional equipment that the Synths or Institute as a whole are using. This one looks a lot better than the Institute laser, but is probably equal in actual functionality. There's a semi-automatic version, a fully automatic version, a few different stocks, but the aesthetics of this are definitely quite a few yards ahead of the other one. And one thing to really note about this, when using it on full auto, it is really full auto. Like, this thing has a stupidly high rate of fire, whether that be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how balanced you want your game to be. Or I guess in turn, how much ammo you have to throw at it. So then, just as our mod shout out of the week, brought to you by JuiceHead.net, where I sell merch that you can check out. And I will have a link to this down below. Either way, CBBE officially got ported over to Xbox One. It's more or less going to be another body replacer for Fallout 4. I don't really use mods like this. I don't typically cover mods like this, but it is actually going to be compatible with a bunch of different vanilla outfits and potentially some modded outfits in the future. This is by far the most used body type for Fallout 4 on PC. So it may trigger some people actually bringing over some of the different outfit mods onto Xbox One. I don't know if that's going to happen. I haven't actually heard of anybody doing it, but either way, it's something that's pretty cool to get released, and hopefully it'll make your character just look a little bit better, whether that be clothed or unclothed. I really like this mod. This is going to be called When Science Retires. What it's going to do is actually implement the Lear, a mod I showed you a few weeks ago, into Fallout 4 in a very different way. In the default Lear mod, the way it's going to work is it's just going to be implemented into the leveled list, and you can find it on various enemies in Fallout 4. Well, after installing this mod, there's actually only going to be one iteration of it across the entire Commonwealth. The reason this is lore friendly is because it really didn't make a ton of sense for the Lear to be so abundant throughout the Commonwealth. If you don't know, it's actually from one of the DLCs from Fallout New Vegas, and it was kind of a science project in that DLC. Somebody built it, somebody put a lot of time and effort into it, and it wouldn't make sense for everyone across Fallout 4 to suddenly have access to it. So it's going to add a new location and a little bit of a backstory as to how this got in the Commonwealth, and it's pretty cool. I don't want to spoil too much or give away the location because I know some of you will want to find this or stumble upon it on your own, but this is definitely a really cool implementation. It doesn't change anything about the Lear itself, it's just going to change the way it's integrated into the world, and of course, following this mod, there's only going to be one of these. So if you drop it and you don't like cheating, you're kind of on the screwed side. Either way, this has a really high level of attention to detail, and it's definitely something worth checking out. So we have Age of Airships. I've been showing you guys snippets of this mod for months upon months at this point, and wow, I'm actually really blown away. This mod looked cool, and I always knew it was going to look cool when it was released. I assumed it would be another cool and fancy player home mod, but this is honestly so much more than that. Age of Airships is going to add in a bunch of airships or blimps or zeppelins, whatever you want to call them, across the Commonwealth. In addition, it's actually going to add in a few boats, but we'll get into that in a second. Since it's probably a question, how do you get to the airship? Basically, there's going to be a vertibird or vertibirds scattered around the Commonwealth also, and you get in that and actually take it up to the airship through a little fast travel mechanism. I really like this. I feel like it's a fairly lore friendly way of implementing this. Obviously, an airship mod in Fallout 4 will almost never be lore friendly unless it's like Pridwin 2.0. But from there, you have a few different options as to how you could go with this mod. First and foremost, you could just explore some of these airships. They are really well designed and quite beautiful on the inside. Some of them are made customly for Fallout 4. Other ones are actually recreations that are historically accurate, specifically the Hindenburg that you probably have heard about from the Hindenburg disaster. Walking through those, you can explore and really just find some of the intricacies and only imagine how much time actually went into handcrafting some of the aspects of this mod. But beyond that, there's other airships that you actually can use as a player home that have all the appropriate things you'd want to find in that. And I honestly thought the mod would stop there, but even beyond all of that, many of these airships actually have a fast travel mechanic in it, so it has a pretty lucrative and legitimate use throughout the game, especially if you're playing on survival. I would love to see in the future maybe some challenge into actually getting access to that, because right now, as soon as you board the airship, which you can do just by walking up to the vertibird, there's no cost to travel from one point to another. Maybe having a cost of fuel or ammo or money or something like that, I think would be kind of cool and a little bit more immersive for those of us who enjoy that. But either way, you could actually travel all around the Commonwealth, and that's where it kind of brings me to one of the other cool parts about this mod. As you're looking up now, you're going to see airships. They'll of course be over many of the major locations, and I don't know, I think it looks really cool to have those in the background. But some of these will actually attack you. There's also enemy airships, and they don't do much. It's just a few NPCs on turrets or things like that. But if you're walking and you suddenly start getting shot from the sky, that's probably one of those enemy airships that happens to be stationed there, and I really like that. I feel like it's a simple but really cool touch. And yes, there's still more. So then there's also quests. So more or less, there's 3 distinctive quests that take place on kind of historical fronts, not historical in Fallout 4's lore, but historical in actual, like, the real life lore. The history of many different countries, and you actually get to experience some of these as well as check out some of those custom models. There's also a few distinctive locations that this takes place at that are totally custom built for this that you can visit after the fact. These are really cool experiences, especially if you're playing on survival where it is really high stakes, and in addition, after completing some of these quests, you get access to new things like a new airship. And of course, if all of that wasn't enough, there also are battleships or boats implemented in this also, in case maybe airships aren't your thing or just in general you're afraid of heights. All around, this is a massive mod, definitely adding in hours upon hours of new content into Fallout 4. It's beautifully implemented, it blew away my expectations, and I would definitely recommend downloading this if you're even on the fence about it. So we have a really cool new Sim Settlements add-on pack, and that's going to be Flotsam and Jetsam. I'm not sure if there's some like inside joke I'm not getting from those, but either way, what this is going to do is of course add in new plot types for you to use in Sim Settlements. Some of these are going to be land-based plots that are cool, unique, and interesting, but the really cool and interesting part about this is it actually adds in a bunch of sea-based or water plots. Many of these actually using boats or other ship-like structures to create the basis for that house. Some of the homes do have makeshift flotation devices, and all around it's really a pack best used on some of the many beaches or sea-based settlements in Fallout 4. That's really the standout feature of it and the reason I enjoy using it so much. Creating a little almost dock area and having a bunch of ship homes, stores, or whatever it may be does really look quite cool. It definitely mixes up the settlements a bit. I'm so used to seeing like box houses that seeing a boat now instead is actually quite nice. It's quite refreshing, definitely distinctively different than a lot of the other Sim settlement packs out there, and I would say worth a download. So we actually have the version 10 update to ReGrowth Overhaul. I personally couldn't find like a complete explicit changelog as to what this is changing about ReGrowth. It's a mod I've featured many times on this channel, and you've probably used or at least downloaded at least once yourself. But some of the things I did read on the file are actually new trees, which you definitely can notice. There are new and distinctive pines across the Commonwealth now that look really cool, and actually notice they have like way more bends. They look much more like real trees compared to the ones in some of the older versions. And the other distinctive thing that pops out at you is actually the new grass or the ground cover. The grass in this version definitely has, I think, a little bit more color in it. There's a bit more variety among some of the things covering the ground. I could definitely see this not being for everyone, but I honestly don't feel strongly about it one way or the other, just kind of there. And at least for me, and maybe maybe I'm alone here, the major change I found here was FPS. My FPS did not take nearly as hard of a hit as with some of the older versions of ReGrowth. Now maybe I'm an isolated case or this just happens to be a good day for my computer, but I definitely noticed a difference here. And although on PC this file is quite massive at 2 gigabytes in size, it definitely was worth the download just due to the FPS boost. If you're already using ReGrowth, I definitely think it's worth the update. I personally like the changes, even if I'm not entirely sure as to what all of them are. I would have asked the mod author, but I think this mod author doesn't like me, so I'm avoiding doing that. And from my experience, it definitely still is worth the download, even if just for the things I covered. That's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy as always. I actually had a lot of fun making this one. I feel like experiencing a lot of these mods was just, I don't know, fun. I enjoyed it. I don't really have a specific psych fun fact of the day, but either way, just something I want to kind of remind everyone is that even though some people online like to be really harsh, and I feel like part of this is because of the disconnect, you're not staring at someone's face and saying something really mean to them, you're staring at your monitor, and it's very disconnected from reality, and another person is receiving that. But I feel like too often people don't say things in a way that actually is going to change someone's mind. Like a lot of the time I'll read comments on videos that are not so much constructive but legitimate criticisms, legitimate pointers that I should be listening to. But so often I feel like they're worded in just really rude or harsh ways that almost seemingly is to just make me feel a little bit worse that day. Maybe that's not the intention, maybe it's just a bad way of wording it, but either way I try to actually set that aside and look at, alright, why is someone saying this? Some of them might just be bogus or trolls, and some people like to just call every mean comment from a hater, but I think a lot of times some of those mean comments are probably based in reality and have some legitimate concerns behind them that you should attend to. I don't really know what the point of this like little rant was, but I guess on my side I should try and not feel so strongly about what people say because again they are disconnected, and that potentially if you're someone that's a mean commenter side, just think about the way you word things sometimes. Because there definitely has been times where after reading page upon page of mean comments it kind of gets to you a little bit, and I don't think that's everyone's intention. Some people definitely is, but not everyone. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As always, again, I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.